Well, welcome everyone. I think we might as well get started. Everyone's time is valuable. So again, this is just a reinvigorating the group that we had started probably about 5 years ago, and looking at IFC 4.3 implementation. And it's been a little bit of time since we last met, basically 2 years. It was November 2023. So today we could spend 15 hours covering stuff, but we'll just stick to 1 hour, and we won't cover everything in full detail, but it's more just to get people's thoughts collected together. So welcome. Yes, it's nice still to be alive after all the events of the last few years. We'll have a look at current buildingSMART international activities. Some good news there. Some updates from software companies. Now, not everyone has contacted me, so I'm not sure exactly how many people will be doing that, but hopefully there'll be some good things to share there. A thing called the openBIM Pledge, something that Dion Malt sort of kicked off, and I've been having a bit of input in, so we might talk about that and see how that might help us in our conversations. And then looking at where the working group might head to next year, and see where people's interests lie and what activities you'd like to get involved in. And then some of just the general buildingSMART Australasia XChange events. So just as a heads up for those people this is the first time you've joined us, this working group started from a collaboration with buildingSMART Australasia, Transport for New South Wales and TMR, with associated software companies and consultants, contractors and universities. And so you can see a list of them there. Not everyone may be present today in this, and there's a lot more people who've joined since. And the purpose of this is to kind of originally to do some real testing of 4.3 capabilities of software and interoperability and exchanging data, but it's also a very significant component of just education of buildingSMART generally, IFC and what's going on. I'm also recording this session, so I should just mention that. So some of the current activities since we last met in November 2023. 4.3 is now a full ISO standard, so that was verified in January 2024, and you can see the current verified standard there, 4.3.2.0. As with all standards which are complex like this, there will be a need for updates. There's obviously some typos, some spelling mistakes, things like that. Also some technical details just to kind of get tweaked, and they will be rolled into the work of another working group, the IFC 4.4 or 4x4, the tunnel group, which of course has got a big focus on underground modeling and underground data. And in past sessions, we've had Pat McLaren from Sequent, now part of Bentley, showing some of the work that capabilities that they have already built to satisfy that 4.4. But that is not ratified yet, and so it will be updated. That's ongoing work with buildingSMART International. IFC5 is in development, and no doubt you've seen some things over the past probably 18 months. That is still, I suppose, a bit over the horizon. There's varying reactions to IFC5, but it brings new capabilities when it comes to dealing with sort of how data is packaged up and delivered. So I think we'll hear more of that, but at the moment, that development work is just slowed down a bit on in buildingSMART International. If anyone would like to sort of has a greater idea of what's happening with IFC5 would like to comment, by all means.
So I was just going to, just from an IFC5 perspective, it has been approved now as a project. So it went through a voting process about a month ago, 2 months ago, I think it was, and it's now been approved as a project. So now it's going out to get proper funding. The project groups are getting pulled together. So that's where IFC5 is at the moment. So if anyone's interested in being part of that, just let us know.
Okay, thank you, Eric. It's good to hear that there is that financial commitment from buildingSMART International. Also, there's been quite a lot of activity since, again, November 2023 on IDS, and many people are using that and implementing that. That's Information Delivery Specification, which is a very useful tool in the IFC kind of toolbox, buildingSMART toolbox for defining requirements and then checking of models and the data that's within them. So again, this is probably more an opportunity for mentioning things. The detail, we'll talk about how we'll get into that a bit later. And then there's, of course, the buildingSMART Data Dictionary, the BSDD. There's been significant amount of work on that. And Dion Malt from Lend-Lease has been contributing a fair amount on that regard. And I think we should be able to coordinate some good Australasian examples of that useful for industry. Okay, the buildingSMART International Summit was held in Berlin back a few months ago, end of September. All the presentations have now been posted on their site, and so there's a YouTube link there, and also you can see a very small sample of the presentations that were done there. There are general ones, and then there are very specific ones on the actual domains themselves, whether it's the airport, infrastructure, and so on. So there's a range of categories of information in there. So depending on where your interest lies, I would recommend you have a poke around, because there's some really good things happening. In one part in particular, Jim Plume, who's part of the infrastructure domain, was kind enough to invite me along to a couple of their meetings. And for them in particular, they're having a focus on defining those things there: georeferencing for infrastructure projects, spatial breakdown, and alignment. And they are, of course, really the major developments of to be implemented in 4x3, and seeing it has an infrastructure focus. There was also quite an interesting conversation about people saying we need model examples. So there were conversations with people from Finland, Sweden, Japan, Norway, the Netherlands, of course, Australia, and the US, and other countries as well, interested in creating a model store so people could actually test things out. Pardon me. So I think that's a significant thing, and it will be a kind of a controlled area where people can get access to the information there. So I see that as a huge, a valuable place that we can get to in the future. He went backwards. Okay. Yeah, we'll get there someday. Sorry about that. Now, just from the summit, I think there were. It's worth mentioning significant achievement of TMR from Queensland. They were shortlisted of 2 out of all the category of operations, and alas, they didn't win that award, but they received a special mention. So of the about 30 different finalists, there were only 2 people awarded special mentions, and so one was TMR from Queensland Government. So huge congratulations to the guys at TMR who are part of this group, and the people who are contributing to that as well, the consultants and the contractors too. Also, John Holland were finalists in the construction area for Gold Coast Light Rail, and again they were one of 2 finalists. So we're kind of hitting we're doing some good stuff in Australia, and at a world-class level, and being recognised too, which is great. Why am I getting the wrong thing happening? Okay, so that's a bit of a summary of what's been happening from the buildingSMART side of things. And what I'd like to do now is kind of invite a range of our software colleagues. Maybe if we kick this off, and I haven't got everyone confirmed about if they're presenting something, but maybe Lee, if I could, Lee Gregory from 12D, if I could, I'll pass over to you.
Right. Thank you, Scott. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, fine.
Right. What I'm actually going to present in about 10 minutes is actually what I've been working on with buildingSMART International for the last 10 years, which is getting georeferencing tins, alignments and strings into IFC4x3. So it's going to be very fast, but just give you an idea of the breadth and what's now available. The problems with IFC2x3 was it uses a local engineering coordinate system. Basically, that's a 0, 0 in there, and the Earth is flat. So it's called a topocentric coordinate system. And there wasn't anything there for alignments, tins, pavements, and so on. So it was really what I'd call vertical BIM. You have your problems there where you got Australian project, 155 kilometres, where you want a coordinate system that works for the whole project, because you work on this in different places. So a local origin somewhere at 0, 0 just does not work. The other horror, which you can see straight away, is if you go out at height, you've got the curvature of the Earth. So the heights are going to be different. So you've got to allow for that sort of thing with the curvature of the Earth as well. So basically, we need a world coordinate system. And that's what we use as longitude and latitude. That's been around only for about 400 or 500 years. And that gives you a unique position on the sphere. That's called the horizontal datum, which is the model of the Earth and the longitude and latitude definition. In Australia, that's GDA 2020. So in civil projects, we're talking about long civil projects, we don't use longitude and latitude. We use a thing called a map projection and map coordinates. And for what that is you basically have something like a cylinder in this case. You go from the center of the Earth through the point on the surface of the ellipsoid, and you hit this cylinder, you roll that out, and that'll give you what we call eastings and northings, or map coordinates. You can't have something like that for the whole of the Earth, so usually it's broken up into smaller zones. And the universal transverse Mercator is the one used virtually around the world, which breaks it up into 6-degree zones. And so in Australia, we're using that. That's what our MGA 2020 is. It's a UTM. And basically, we go from zones 50 to 56. And the coordinates for a map projection are usually easting and northings. So for georeferencing, you require a model of the Earth and longitude and latitude, which is the horizontal datum. You need a vertical datum. I'll say no more about that, but it's an Australian height datum here in Australia. It's not ellipsoid heights at all. A map projection and a zone number. And with that, you get unique eastings and northings. And basically the whole thing is you've got a unique longitude and latitude, and you can go backwards and forwards uniquely from that to eastings and northings. So you have a model, again, coordinate system for the Earth. So for this particular project, say it uses MGA 2020 and Australian height datum. So basically it's telling you exactly what map coordinates you can use for the project. So in IFC4x3, there's a thing called IFC projected CRS, which was added actually in IFC4, and it gives you a horizontal datum, vertical datum, map projection and zone number, all that stuff I mentioned. It was missing You have to have another thing to go with it, and for IFC4 it was missing what we needed, and that was added into IFC4x3 called a rigid operation. It's just a translation in X, Y, and Z. So basically in your file, you'd have a horizontal IFC projected CRS, which will say it's GDA 2020, Australian height datum, MGA 2020, zone 56, and a null 000 translation. That's what you just have to put in your file. And what that tells you, if that's in your file, when you're reading in your IFC file, your data is going to come in map coordinates of eastings, northings, and Australian height datum in the map projection that was given in that file. So where I'm sitting here is my coordinates are those eastings and northings, which is a 9 and 10 digit number. That is what you'll have in your IFC file. And basically 00 is totally banished. You don't use that at all in georeferencing. So that's what we've been waiting for about the last decade, is to actually be able to use our proper map coordinates in the file. What about local engineering coordinates? Basically, that's for like building and people, that no problem at all. That's very easy. The building designer in local engineering coordinates just has to figure out when the data is being read in, how it comes into map coordinates. Simple as that. But for us civils people, it's fantastic. We're now off the hook. All our work is done in map coordinates. It's up to the vertical BIM people to figure out how they get their data across to us. And how is this done? Basically, luckily, locally things are flat. And so we can use that idea is that when you're in a site that's very small, you can actually work out a clockwise rotation in the X and Y plane, a factor applied to both X and Y, and a 2D translation, and that'll take you from your local engineering coordinates to map coordinates. And the reverse will go the other way. And this particular one is known as a 2D helmet transformation. So basically, it's just a fairly simple equation. And for a helmet, factor X and factor Y and factor Z are all equal to 1. So this allows you to go backwards and forwards. So how do you get that information? Well, again, if the site is small, what you can have, if you've got a number of points with, both coordinate systems, you can do least squared analysis to give you those parameters that you need. So usually someone like a surveyor can tell you that quite quickly. But also, if you're going to assume that that factor is 1, then it can be simplified. What it tells you, it's a counterclockwise rotation between your local north and the map grid north. That's the north from the map coordinates, not true north or anything like that. And then for your 00, you just need to know the eastings and northings from that point. And hey presto, you can go these equations to go between the two systems. So it's fairly easy. You can have a slightly more complicated one, or you can assume the factor is 1. We can talk about that later, about what could be wrong with assuming the factors are 1. Right, so in IFC4x3, they've added in this IFC map conversion scale with all these parameters. And basically what it means is you can use those to give you a clockwise angle theta. And in matrix form, that's the equations that it produces on your data as it's read in. And basically part of that is the helmet transformation. There is a scale in there, but basically that's going between units. So again, we're going to work totally in meters. That would actually be 1. So there's now something in there. So if you've got a map conversion scale in there instead of your rigid operation, then you're saying the data in the files in local engineering coordinates, and that map conversion scale will bring it into map coordinates as we read it in. So if you've got a local engineering coordinate system, all you have to get, say, is a number of points in both coordinate systems and work out those parameters. And you whack that information, projected CRS, a map conversion scale with those parameters in your file, and hey presto. The big thing you've got to know there is those parameters only apply to one small area. If you've got a lot of different small areas, they're going to have different parameters. So a classic case is for road or rail, where it'll be in map coordinates. You need different IFC map conversion scaled for all the little projects along the way. You can't use the one thing, you'll be totally out of it. there's one horrible truth that you all have to remember. We have what we call ground meters, is what you use with your normal ruler. But when you're using map coordinates, you have the distance between 2 points is what's called map meters. They're not the same thing. So basic, you can have local engineering coordinates, which use your ground meters and short distances, or map coordinates, which will have map meters and goes large distance. You can't have both. So you've got to be very careful in a project, you know exactly which one you've got and how you go between them. So there are 4 cases in IFC4x3 now covers. You've got the coordinates in the file and map coordinates. So you just need IFC projected CRS and rigid operation. You've got map meters. You just need a translation to get across. That's when you've got truncated map coordinates. The third case is when you've got local engineering coordinates. And if you've got the projected CRS and map conversion scale, it'll get you the map coordinates. And then there's a total flatland one, which is IFC2x3, where everything's just in local engineering coordinates. Other things we've got there, tins, no problem. There's a triangulated irregular network, and this is where it's gone across between, say, 12D model and US BIM in projected space, no problem. There is IFC alignment, which has your normal civil, horizontal, and vertical geometry, and that's in the semantic part of the definition. That's perfect for going between civil products. And this is a 33-kilometre job that's gone between 12D model and US BIM. This was a test case for IFC4x3. The final thing is strings. And there's a thing in there called IFC annotation. It has a point, polyline, and polygon. So strings can be represented IFC. And even for a S5488 for underground utilities, where you need attributes on vertices and segments, that can be all covered by rel nesting these IFC annotations. So when you've got a survey string with all that data there, it's got geo-reference string, you can see string names go across, the models, even models can go across backwards and forwards. You've got your attributes for the string, you've got your attributes for your vertices, and you've got your attributes for your segments. All go backwards and forwards. So all your survey data and any string data does work. It's all there in IFC. So for civil, you have your general geo-reference tree, large coordinates, all the things you need for strings, names, alignments, tins, and you can actually have models as well. So for you guys in civils and surveyors, you can finally rejoice. The world's no longer flat. Horizontal BIM is finally on an equal footing with vertical BIM. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Okay, it's good to see some things go from one piece of software to a viewer and the data actually comes across. So yeah, that's good. Okay, we might keep pressing on. So Lee, I might sort of ask you to stop sharing and just wonder if one of our other colleagues from Autodesk, anyone got to present anything from your side?
Hey Scott, Sam Parnell here from Autodesk. How's it going? Unfortunately, nothing to present today, and a bit scary following that presentation from Lee. So that was very impressive. So I'll have something to present for the next catch up with everyone.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, thanks, Sam. Anyone from Bentley? Who would like
Hey
to...
Scott, this is Alan.
Hi. Hi, Alan.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, so likewise, I don't have anything to necessarily present. Just letting you know that we are working with a lot of stuff with IFC. The latest that I'm aware of, because I'm based in the U.S., we've been working with a number of DOTs over here for some of their model as a legal requirement, legal document. So I have a little bit of sample here that I can show you real quick on what they've done with it. We're continuing to make progress because we're still kind of learning how they want to surface the IFC, some of the different things they want to do, but they were able to provide valid IFC files for them that meet both validation service and their IDS, among many other requirements that they have that may not necessarily be, standard. But
Yep.
I'll just share really quickly what that kind of looks like. And but I want to caution you guys, this is not like right out of the box coming out of our stuff. They use our software to model all the geometry, to model the engineering aspects of it, to get the base IFC out, and then they went in and edited a lot of the files through a Blender Bonsai, which I know a number of other people are doing that to clean up their IFC files in various different ways. We know that we have to do some work on the export side, especially with coordinate systems and with spatial containment. One of the things that they really wanted to make sure we did was define some kind of spatial containment. And we got partially with the way there, but as you can see, after they completed this Blender Bonsai combo work editing our IFC file, you can see that we have some amount of spatial containment here with a lot of the data that you might have coming out of our software, our authoring software. So a lot of the data here could also be, it's also customizable. So everything that is done in the authoring application is exported out to IFC through the properties, and then we also have something called item types, which is just additional attribution. So thus we'll have to add specific IFC item types to it. But just showing you, this is kind of what it looks like. This is a composite IFC file with rebar, so this used multiple of our authoring applications that they were able to combine using this workflow. So they were able to do a lot of really cool stuff. Now what we're working on is trying to determine on the export side, what are the next steps to help them do less of that editing in that third-party software to get them where they need to go. On the import applications and our cloud applications, so I don't have anything to show there right off the bat. I don't know if Tim or Henrique might have something up, but if not, that's okay. But on the MicroStation side and everything that's inherited, so open roads, open buildings, there has been some work consuming IFC files, referencing them in, not importing, so it's not editable, but being able to view them in a unified viewer in that desktop application. But because of our release cycle, only some of the IFC4x3 stuff came out, where it was, you're able to use. So there are still some missing pieces of it. And then on the import side, on the iModel side, on our cloud, Bentley infrastructure cloud, we are also still working on different ways to import it there. I think there's some focus on geometry. There might be some focus on some other aspects of it. But that is some of our focuses. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. We are continuously working with IFC4x3 and trying to find all the different markets that are using them. Albeit we'd like to see it a little bit more standardized, but we understand that a lot of the different markets have different needs. So that's all I have for this update. I'll put myself on mute now.
Thanks, Alan. It's great to see the progress that you have, and also to know about the coordination with the Department of Transport's, in the States there. So that's really good. And hopefully a lot more good things will come out of that as well. Okay, so do we have anyone from Trimble who would like to present something?
I do believe you had Ed Chappelle at Trimble invited. I don't know if there's anyone else from Trimble on the call, but he's no longer at Trimble. He's now at WSB. So there might be. Yeah,
thanks for that. There was someone else who I got linked to, and maybe Ed's invitation I kind of included by mistake. But yeah, okay.
So Scott was going to say we might better get Sean on the next call, actually.
Well, I actually contacted Sean and he's unavailable.
I think he's in the US at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. Also, is anyone from Allplan on the call? Okay. Deswick. Okay, well, what I might do is go back sharing my screen to where we were before. And let me get back to, so that was a software update, and thank you for the people who have given the update, and I know there are certain restrictions about what you can sort of mention in that as well. Okay, next item on the agenda is the openBIM pledge, and maybe Dion's on the line, I'm not sure. So this was on the Ozark wiki site.
Yep, I'm here.
Hi Dion. Yeah, so we had a conversation about struggles that contractors had for dealing with models that come through which are probably not perfect. And then Dion had a brain explosion at 1 a.m. when you kind of put some stuff down. So Dion, do you want to say a few things about this?
Yeah, sure. So as you know, I work for Lend-Lease as well as I author the Bonsai native IFC authoring application. So that means that I look at IFC both from the perspective of a user working with IFCs day to day and authoring IFCs and editing IFCs, as well as a vendor creating software for it. And I guess I also have a little bit of an experience in working on the schema itself. So there's kind of 3 areas where this is coming from. And as Lend-Lease is a bit of a unique position in that, like all general contractors, we very rarely produce content firsthand, but we receive content from every single discipline. So we're not just one discipline, but we get everything, including a whole bunch of non-geometric data like time and cost and carbon and risk and safety. And all of these things is where IFC truly shines. You know, IFC doesn't shine so much if all you want to do is put a bit of structural information in a model. You know, there's other more optimized data schemas for that. But IFC is really quite unique in its ability to federate and create cross-disciplinary relationships and be a foundational building block. So IFC is really well suited. And as we've rolled out IFC across as a standard on all our projects at Lend-Lease, we've noticed there are certain things you need to get right before you can start reaping the benefits of more advanced uses of IFC. And that's where the idea of this openBIM pledge comes from. The idea is similar to the browser pledge signed by browser vendors to go and only adopt standards in their browsers to kind of break the browser interoperability problem. The idea is that if we can expect certain standardized outputs from all the consultants and subcontractors that we work with, then down the line, we can all reap similar benefits. So it's broken down into various tiers and streams. So for example, there is a common stream to do with things that are common across every single discipline, where you got to do your basics. So for example, tier 0 is simply providing an IFC file to begin with. Many people don't even take that first step. They don't provide an IFC file and they don't even open it to make sure that it's viewable and it looks vaguely like their building. You know, many people haven't taken that very 0th step. And then there's the first step of being conscious about the choice of IFC schema and what that implies, and having certain properties that are associated to your project. And these properties at this state do not need to have the right data type. They don't need to be grouped into consistent property sets. They don't need to follow the standard. And this is where most people are when they're using IFC. And that's great, but if you don't have that layer of standardization of data type and property sets and using the standard, you can't then do cool things like standardize using the BSTD or use IDSs because you don't know your data types. So then that takes you to tier 2 when you're starting to say, all right, everything needs to have proper IFC classifications so that you can filter with IDS, splitting P sets and Q sets so that you can start doing parametric quantification in a later tier, and so on. So it's a sort of gradual adoption taken from our experience of what's easy to adopt and low cost and high benefit, to what is a bit more pushing the boundaries of extreme openBIM. So if you go to one of the later tiers, you have structural models which have loads and reaction forces, which I don't know who in here apart from, I don't know, let's see who's in the room. Is John in the room? John Merchant? Yeah, he's probably done that. I'm not sure who else has. And similarly, things like integrating with smart building schemas and putting backnet references in your asset data. That's a later tier in asset data. Or things like work orders or smart building systems with sensors that affect procedures and events that can all be done in IFC, but it's a later tier because people are still struggling with calling your walls an IFC wall. So in any case, there's a whole bunch of various streams here, and starting with easier tiers to harder tiers, if that makes sense, or which each tier unlocks new capabilities that the schema can provide. So part of the pledge, and this isn't a pledge that CEOs need to sign, so don't worry about that. If you're working on a project in any sort of capacity in that you have control either around what's going in the model or creating a contract so you can ask people to produce models for you, or you're auditing it, then this is for you. And the idea is that when you sign it in blood, you are required, basically twice a year, the idea is for us to do a little knowledge share. So you say, hey guys, we ran a project, we achieved this type of tier on the project. We're generally around this level. We can't yet use IDS because we're still doing this and this and this, or this is the first project we actually did roll out IDSs. And it was good or easy for this reason, or it's hard for that reason. You don't actually need to, and if you have all these NDA projects, that's okay. We're not interested in the project itself. We're interested in the execution methods and knowledge sharing. So you can see there's a few names down there already of people who have said, yes, we'd like to go and do some knowledge sharing. So I guess you can sort of think of this as a grassroots efforts from the user side rather than the vendor side. So whereas vendor sides have certification and validation to look up towards, this is the user's flip side of the coin of gradual adoption of the more sophisticated aspects of IFC. So yeah, if you're interested, there's a link. Yeah, put your name down there and the company. And in hindsight, what we really should do is have some contact details so we can actually send out this meeting request. That was really dumb. So we'll do that, and yeah, hope you guys like it.
Well, Dion, it's a work in progress. That's what the WIP is meant to be on there. But yeah, thanks, Dion. I think this is a nice way of helping people wade through the IFC schema and just go. So if I just go back a slide, depending on which domain you're working in, you can then sign up to do which components. We have a more extensive document, but this is more just a chance to introduce it. And if people are interested, contact us, and it would be good to kind of get some people connected to that. Okay. So, little deviation along the road. So this working group, as you've probably seen by the people attending, has sort of grown quite extensively. So there is the potential to actually have maybe specialist working groups, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But the working group might then, we have the opportunity of creating our own little sandbox environment where we contribute models, and we can then place our own work inside another context and try out how things can actually go together. And I think that would be a great thing to do. By also then integrating those components there, the IFC class and predefined type, which seems to be a pretty kind of, as Dion mentioned, it's sort of like the first step. If you've got infrastructure models, that hasn't been really well developed over time, but I think now people are starting to really do that. And then associated with that, as soon as it's got the proper class, well, then you've got common properties and property sets and base quantities. And what goes with that is being able to then test your IFC files, and the buildingSMART service of the validation service is a really worthwhile thing to trial. This working group also, potentially, we can then run technical workshops. So like the openBIM pledge, we could run that as a separate thing. We could then run, how to use the validation service, then talking about IDS and BSDD. So how those things actually work in detail. Another idea that's sort of floating around for this working group is that with the buildingSMART International Awards, we've had great success from the two organisations I mentioned earlier, but there's the potential of perhaps coaching people who've got a project that is probably world class but don't know how to go about doing the submission. So a number of people in buildingSMART Australasia are current judges. So I think if people are interested in that, maybe February, March sometime would be a good time to start talking about that when the submissions are open for awards. Because what we want to do is not just encourage, but we want to acknowledge real achievements of people in the Australasian area. And there's been, Queen's Wharf, Auckland Airport, Cross River Rail. I mean, there's been a range of other projects which have been recognised. And part of all this is, I suppose, including in the sandbox environment to have a repository of model and data. So files of differing IFC versions from different domains, and then IDS and BDS samples. So what comes from that can be our working groups, which have a specialist areas. So whether it's infrastructure generally, or there's been talk about starting an airport group, and then there's interest in tunnel and power transmission, and there could be others as well. So I think this is an opportunity for you, and maybe in conversation with your colleagues as well in your companies, how would you like to get involved in those? Because there are some significant things being done internationally, and how about we use the connections that we have to bring that experience and expertise back to Australia. So the sandbox, as I mentioned, at the moment, we've got the old little project that's been floating around for quite some time, and then one that Sandra Lang got the data sets for, and I was kind of associated with that. So there's this site in Western Sydney where we've got that project, and Lee Gregory and his colleagues from 12D did a design for that, and we had the geotech from Pat McLaren. So it was a nice kind of connection, but we could still use the same data set for doing other things or placing other buildings and structures on that. And the thing on the right is the rail project, which had a building, and just an example. This just a few slides from XChange showing what the Sandra's presentation. So there's obviously things which are infrastructure and linear, and then buildings, and you can see the two pieces of software there, and then a range of different disciplines. And so by doing this, the idea was to, often we have legacy data, well, we actually want to upgrade it to 4x3, or and so by doing that, we actually looked at all the objects, whether they were had the correct IFC mapping or not, and then we remapped them. So it sort of shows a bit of an example, and then so there's a before and after. So that's kind of an example of what could be in our sandbox, and suitable for people to share and have a look at. And Sandra, chose a part of Central Australia to actually put this thing in, so it could actually have a real location. And then if we add more information to this, we could actually kind of see it in a landscape. Maybe a pretty tough one out there, let's say, but again, it gave us the freedom to kind of put it in without thinking someone's having a rail project over the fence. But it just gives an idea of putting something in a coordinate reference system. Part of this sandbox approach would be then say, well, there can be a range of different XChange scenarios or model uses or use cases as they're multiply described. And so if there's something here that people would say, well, okay, I want to do a quantity takeoff for an infrastructure project, well, let's get that up and let's find out what's required. And it could then tie in with the openBIM pledge. So what would be needed to do a cost analysis on a project? Well, here are the IFC characteristics that we need to embed. And so you can see the range of different use cases. They're a rather limited range, but associated with infrastructure projects. Okay, now these were defined very early on by the infrastructure domain internationally. Getting very close to the end, and then hopefully we'll have a few minutes for questions. Since we last met, we've had XChange 2024 at UTS, which I think was successful. We then ran. There's another slide, Eric. Yeah, no, just wait.
Oh, sorry.
Just wait.
Okay, sorry, I'm jumping in. All right.
So then we had an XChange X, a smaller gathering in Arab's office in October 2024, which gave us kind of the opportunity of testing the idea to see maybe a localized but a smaller version could work quite well. And we got a good attendance with that. And then in June this year, there was XChange 2025. We had a bit more confidence and greater range of presentations. Again, a technical day focus and then a strategy day. And so on the back of that, we're proposing XChange 2026, and it looks like it will be in Brisbane. So for all you people south of there, plan your trip, get your board shorts out, so that would be good. The dates are yet to be finalised, but it's probably going to be at QUT, so that's an exciting opportunity. And what we would like to do is again highlight, projects that are being done with people using, openBIM. And it would be great if you had something that you'd like to present. We could discuss that. So technical or strategy, I think we're getting to the stage where we need more technical presentations. How does this actually work, and what have we achieved in our project? Okay, I'll just throw this in.
I was going to throw in that that'll likely be in June. So anyone wondering what time of year we're running at, so we're just talking at the moment to lock down the dates. Potentially both days will be at QUT, but we're just weighing that up at the moment. But it's looking to be in June. So yeah, like Scott said, if you're interested in presenting, then we'll go on for sponsorships as well very soon. Thanks, Scott.
Okay, and if you've got a friend you'd like to dob in who's doing some great work, do that as well. Okay, there was a document which I saw just quite recently, which looked pretty good, published by Siemens, and this is their IFC guide for data management principles for facilities management. Now, this is one area where people keep going, oh yeah, facilities management is kind of like where the bulk of money is spent on a project. And we always have, this cliff at the end of the project where people just sort of throw the data off the end. Well, this is a really good document. So if you're involved in that area or in setting the tone on a project, it would be a really good one to look at. And they've got good graphics, and it would be maybe a document that maybe down the track we have a workshop on to see how what we might have to do to customize it for the Australian context. Okay, now, so that's the end of the formal bit. Sorry, I've done all the talking, or most of the talking. I'd like in the future that maybe this is just the summary bit, and then all the individual working groups, if people are interested in joining those, that's where the real work would go on, and we could then report back to this kind of larger group, because I think there's a real need to not just hear me speak, but I actually want to get contribution from everyone in terms of, because it's a vast area. So next steps. I'm proposing we might have this little group back again in mid-February. If that's not the case, well, don't hold me to it. There's some proposed specialist working groups. Now, buildingSMART International call these things domains. Yeah, I'd prefer not to call it a domain at the moment. It sounds a bit too flash, I think. But again, if you go to the buildingSMART International website and just kind of see where there's kind of areas that you think you might be interested, there's also a construction domain. And I'm actually on that. And so if anyone's interested in just a construction domain area, that would be great. Sandbox contributions, if you're interested in contributing to that, that would be good. So contact me if you're interested. My details are at the bottom. Now, I suppose I should put a caveat on a lot of this stuff. buildingSMART is a voluntary organisation. Not in Australia, it's Australia, New Zealand, it's a not-for-profit. I don't get paid for this, and so we're providing information from the international and from other people as well. So what we'd like you to do, if you want to contribute, if you want to know stuff, is to join up buildingSMART, whether your company can. If not, if you would like to join, it's depending on the type of coffee you drink, it's the cost of a one coffee a week to join buildingSMART Australasia. And then when it's tax deductible, it's less than that. So it's a very, very modest amount in terms of if you saved 1 hour a week using some stuff that you learned from us, it would pay for itself, very, very rapidly. So I would encourage you all to join. And the more serious work, I think we'll see how we might, we want good collaboration, but we want people engaged. So that's why some of the working groups might be limited to buildingSMART members. Sorry about that, but sign up, join us, and hopefully we can have some great outputs. Now, 7 minutes, probably 6 and a bit minutes to go. Any comments, any questions, anything at all?
Yes. Yes, Scott.
Max has got a question.
Well, I can't see the questions in the chat. Sorry.
His hand up.
Got my hand up.
Okay, Max, go for it.
Yeah, listen, Scott, we've been talking about the domains working groups since June this year. It's now been 6 months. Are we able to fast track getting started on some of these things?
Okay, well, you were interested in tunnel and power transmission.
Yes.
Tunnel, the work has substantially been done in 4.4. It hasn't been published because there's some buildingSMART international kind of stage it has to go through to be approved and finalized. So so that's stuff exists. So ping me afterwards and I'll send you a link to where the current data exists. Okay, power transmission, there has been work on that, but basically there's a BSDD that's been created for power transmission, and I think that would be a good place to start as well. But again, maybe we have a conversation offline. Okay.
Well, I just sort of want to get things rolling there. I've got a bunch of people interested in doing stuff and they keep asking me, but we don't seem to get the ball rolling somewhere, sort of thing.
So Max, I guess you're talking about the working groups, the local working groups.
I've already started mustering up support and people, and been working with other committees like for instance, the Tunnelling Institution, the ITA, International Tunnelling Association, which I'm a member of, Working Group 22, where including this sort of stuff in that sort of stuff. So I'm keen, and Eric, I know it sounds like you on the line there. You know what the flavour of the month is within the ANZ region. It's power and water at the moment. So having the ability to do that as one thing, and then water is another one. So yeah, I'm keen to jump in, but it just seems like we're sort of waiting for. The last comment was waiting for the buildingSMART conference in September, and now we're past that, and I'm just trying to figure out what's the next step. That's all.
So as Scott mentioned, we're all volunteers, right? We do this as our second job.
Yeah, mate,
so
ideally,
what we're going to do, the more people we can get together, this is what Scott is trying to do. So we can get people to take the lead and start running these groups. And I know we talked about it back in June, and it's been a delay, but both Scott and I and others, I'm working between both international, local, and my full-time role, but we're trying to get it running. So this is the sort of kick-off, and apologies that it's taken that long, but there's probably a lot that's been happening in the last few months. But yeah, no, we're very keen, Max. Like, we want to get these working groups running. Scott's now sort of the point of contact for all of them, and this is, you could pretty much call this the kick-off. I know we've had a lot of interest in the airports, and I know you've had interest in the tunnel side. So yeah, if they're the ones that we've got biggest interest and people want to take the lead and start helping out Scott, that's what we're calling out for. Because at the end of the day, it just takes people's time, voluntary time that they've got to put into it to, set up the meetings, run the meetings, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm as keen as you, Max, to get these going. And thanks to Scott for organising this and getting so many people on the call as well, because it shows the interest that's out there to really start running these. The first step for us locally was just getting some of those conferences done, XChange X, which take a lot of effort to do as well. And now we really want to focus on these groups so we can get more technical working together, more technically with stuff Dion's doing and others. So it's just a matter of pulling it all together. So we're actually we've engaged Scott to do this. As part of buildingSMART. He was doing it voluntary before. We're actually going to pay him a little bit now so he can actually spend dedicated, focused time on doing this. But in order to do that as well, this is what Scott was saying, and it's a hard one, right? We need to get the members in, we need to get people paying, and get the corporates in, because that's what we then use to drive things forward. So, like I said, we're not for profit, we're volunteers, but there's a lot of interest in this now. And buildingSMART's picking up the work that TMO is doing and other agencies. So I think there's a lot of momentum happening now, and we want to utilise all that interest to help drive it forward now. So yeah, really keen to drive it forward. So apologies it's taken that long. We want to drive it forward, but hopefully this is the starting point.
Okay, any other questions at the moment from anyone else or comments? Okay, you've got email addresses there. Ping me or someone that you know is on the board. Max, we'll talk before the end of the week, okay? So as I mentioned, this little group has only just kicked off again. One great advantage I think we have is that we have an international community that we can draw information from. And one big component of that on the bridges, BIM for bridges side, is the work they're doing in the US, which is, I think, quite significant. And their states, about 20 of the states are pooling money so they can do research and develop examples. And I'd like to think that we could piggyback off that and maybe even use that as a kind of a methodology for doing work in Australia too. So yeah, I think being able to access our international colleagues is quite valuable. Okay, 11:59. Unless there's any other comments, we might wrap up there because I want to make sure that I don't take more of your time and say the same thing again and again. So there's a recording of this. Once I tidy it up, because I think there's a bit at the start I need to chop off, I'll make that available, and the presentation I will make available too. So thank you for joining. Scott, and any comments, let us know.
Just jumping in, Scott, there's a couple of questions in the chat, it looks like.
All right.
This one for Lee and some worked examples and modular skid example, and then one for me from Julie. Oh, she's left. Okay.
I put an answer in there for about the examples for the 4x3. John and Mitchell and I are working on a buildingSMART document at the moment.
Yeah, as for the openBIM pledge one, I don't think universities were the target audience. It was meant for people who are either producing or have the ability to influence the production of using a contract, the receivers.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think in terms of education, like what aspects of the IFC schema are you teaching? I guess there's some parallels, but no, that was definitely not the target audience.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, is there anybody on this call who think they are interested in the pledge and would like to join and are in that position? If your name is not already on the pledge, I recognize some names. Okay, there's a yes in the chat. Fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Michael. Okay, unless there's anything else, how about we wrap it up? And thank you for joining. And I'll send a summary email out. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Scott. Awesome.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay.